So welcome everyone to our February 7th meeting of our Shady Grove Master Plan Implementation Committee. I am Shobana Sharma. I have also been honored to be a voluntary co-chair of this group, along with Carol Kozary, who should be hopefully attending soon. Jeff Resnick passed on the torch to us and still is actively working very hard. So thank you, Jeff, for that, and welcome everyone. I look forward to a wonderful meeting with lots of great information exchanged today. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. The first item on our agenda, can somebody put the agenda? Let me see, where's the agenda?
You can do it, Shobana.
You got it? Thank you.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Thank you.
Of course.
So the thing is, we have a great agenda. It's not overly packed. So hopefully we have some good time this evening to discuss things that are happening in the community. Fantastic. Okay, thank you so much. So I would like to, at this time, just formally welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. It is Wednesday, February 7th. And at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Seth Adams from Montgomery County Public Schools to speak for a few minutes. Hey, Seth, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Awesome, awesome. Welcome to the meeting, and thank you in advance for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me. So I guess just a couple updates from our end. I know the last time I was here, I was talking a bit about our CIP and the requests that the board had made. And a part of that request is obviously to start doing much more in-depth engineering studies at some of our high schools and middle schools around the possibility of transitioning to a distributed model of parking buses. Obviously, that's in conjunction with, I believe what David has been, talking about and the partnership with DGS. As we've been going through the CIP, I think it's just the one thing I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is obviously, within the MCPS CIP, there's a lot of things in there, right? There's a lot of big projects. There's a lot of our systemics. But one of the things that has just recently, a couple weeks ago, the county executive's recommended budget came out, which obviously then transitions over to the council. And it does reflect a pretty significant cut in the first 4 years of our 6-year CIP. It's actually $346 million cut above what the Board of Ed had requested. So I really at this time, I mean, obviously that's a huge impact. It's about a quarter of each fiscal year of that expenditure. So that's obviously pretty significant, and it's going to translate obviously into a lot of project delays. Most likely some of the large high schools, some of the other projects that have been in the pipeline for a while. But in terms of what that means for the engineering work, we really don't know. I think as we go through the conversations with the county council, they're going to be looking at every single line item, every single project of our budget, and really going in deep. So we're hopeful that because it's a smaller dollar value as opposed to, let's say, a brand new high school, it'll obviously stay there, and hopefully it'll stay there, and that we can move forward starting July 1st. But I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention just the overall impact to the CIP, and why that's happening. Obviously, is some of the challenges from a fiscal climate in the county. I don't know if many people know, but the schools are funded. A lot of the school CIP, the Capital Improvements Program, is funded through recordation tax and impact tax through development. And with things such as the high interest rates, those are obviously being impacted, coming in short of where the county office management budget had projected. So we're just navigating this through from a council perspective. And certainly, I think as we get closer to April, May, we'll definitely have a better understanding of ultimately what is going to be the impact. But at this time, I am still hopeful that we'll be able to continue forward with the official engineering study. We've been doing obviously some some high-level reviews from a staff level perspective, but the engineering work is really going to be critical to make sure we're meeting all fire access, all the infrastructure that would be needed for possibly charging stations, those sorts of things. But beyond that, I am aware of, we've sent a few preliminary sketches of what some of the landscape improvements could look like on out across from the Shady Grove Transportation Depot. So I believe, and that's actually something I was hoping we could talk about tonight, is really what the next steps would be on starting to walk through those concepts. As we get closer to the planting season, we really want to hopefully get something, set in stone so that we can get that work started and get it planted and preparation for, the growing season, as it goes into the spring and the summer. But that's what I have from an update. I'm not sure. I'm certainly here to answer any questions, specific questions that some folks may have, but that's really just where we are from an overall perspective.
I did have a follow-up question. So as far as the engineering work, could you please remind us what amount of money is slated for that work in the budget that could potentially be impacted?
Yeah, we were looking at it from a perspective of about $3 million.
Okay.
And that's mostly going to be on the civil engineering work.
Okay. And then I will just mention at this point, you and your team in Montgomery County Public Schools did submit to me 3 different renderings for the plantings and the beautification, which you were just referencing. And that is going to be submitted to the community of Westside in the coming months, probably sooner than later due to the planting season, which you just mentioned. So do you think that will be impacted also, or do you think that's a small enough amount of money that will be able to go forward?
Yeah, we have, I've already carved out those funds within the current fiscal year budget. So we're ready to go on that one. It's really just the engineering study work that would start in fiscal year 25, which starts July 1st.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Seth. Folks, any follow-up questions? Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Shobana. Seth, thank you very much. Can you help me understand how what you've described intersects with what is in the CIP for FY 25 and 26 for the study of the relocation of the bus depot funding, which I'm assuming would go to David Dice's to general services. Like what's the articulation here? I understand that funding for the schools is going to be down, but yet there's funding in it for DGS. And how do these things synchronize or
Sure.
not?
So I mean, they synchronize from a perspective of the capital improvements program. Unlike the operating budget is a line item budget, so it's very specific to an individual project. So and I don't want to get into David's world, but his is for a specific project, and ours is for engineering work from a county-wide perspective at all the other schools. So they're considered two different projects, even though the overall intent would be about the same. So yes, ours is just in our MCPS CIP, and David's is obviously in the DGS. Overall it's about the same, but his is very specific in scope, and ours would be very specific in scope too, and being different in scope because ours is at the individual schools, his is at an individual site.
I see. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff. Alfred, did you have a question?
Yes, please. I'm recalling the study or the team that was comprised of different students last year. I thought it was done at the initiation of a school board member. That was given to us, the idea of it as an answer to questions for any progress or any actual practical exploration of alternatives. What happened to that?
Well, I don't know if David can talk to this. That was actually not commissioned by the school board. A school board member was obviously involved in working with students to put together, a work group that was looking at a variety of options that could exist. You know, but I think what's ultimately coming out of that is that, there is the possibility to, have buses organized in a distributed manner. Obviously, you still need infrastructure there from a centralized perspective for a variety of reasons, but the general day-to-day parking, there is the opportunity. What we need to do now, though, is really do that in-depth review and analysis and really understand what the cost impact would be to park at schools. We can park. We did it was very preliminary, and I think David even had consultants do a very preliminary review of existing sites and what we could ultimately possibly park, without impacting fire access, without impacting, travel lanes, all those sorts of things. And it's not as many buses as you may think. So for this next level study, it's looking at it from a perspective of what modifications, general, hopefully small scale modifications would be required to be able to, park buses overnight on schools and then still be able to, use the school grounds and access points as intended, as designed. So what we envision is expanding, parts of the bus loops, to allow for charging stations, possibly in a centralized aisle or other areas, possibly creating a little bit of a buffer so that fire access can still get around. That we can still have plow operations, we can still have general maintenance operations if there's an issue. We are looking at it from a perspective of if a what's required for the bus drivers to park on site, if we have to make any modifications. So those are the things that we'll look at from an in-depth engineering study. But the student piece was a high level assessment, I think, from a best practices perspective. I don't know, David, you might be able to chime in on this. I think it was actually almost sponsored by the county executive on that one, if I'm not mistaken. And then
well, I think it actually came out of for those of you who may not be well versed in the history of this exercise, this is something that DGS undertook a number of years ago in order to come up with a total solution for the relocation of the Shady Grove Schools Depot. There is no solution that does not involve parking half the buses off the site. And so we had, as Seth mentioned, commissioned a real cursory overview of could we park some buses at high schools and middle schools. Our indication was that it was possible, and that was really the sum total of our analysis. And that's been a discussion off and on over some years. And then the schools, I believe it was one of the Board of Education members, but at some point someone suggested, well, let's give this as a project to some high school students, and they undertook that effort and analysis and gave some validation to the fact that yes, it's entirely possible. But as Seth has accurately indicated, it requires additional engineering analysis to determine exactly what that would look like. And with the school's transition from diesel to electric buses, having charging stations at those parking locations, some of it might require, in certain cases, one level of structured parking for cars above and buses below, which would address some of the security concerns that schools have voiced in the past. So it's doable, and there's study that's involved, and that will be all part of the cost involved in the larger, what we would call the depot project. So, this is part of the overall analysis. You might call it phases 1 and 2, or really 1 and 1A. They're parallel efforts in order to remove the buses from the site. There has to be some interim as well as permanent off-site parking while this is being done. That's all part of the challenge of what promises to be a huge and significant project that I think is garner a lot of national attention, but it's going to be the end result's going to be marvelous. So the short answer is yes, there'll be parking offsite. Schools has increased their willingness to consider that, so it is now part of the overall solution to the issue, but will require some analysis on a site-by-site basis. Every site's going to be different as to how it will accommodate the buses, but the the real game changer was the school's decision to convert its bus fleet to electric buses.
Sure. Did have a question, a follow-up question for Seth. So any new schools which are being built, are those being built with the intention of parking buses at those sites also? Is this our vision for the future now so that other communities aren't stuck in the same position?
Sure. So, yes, all new schools moving forward, we're obviously going to look at it from that perspective. I would just say, and I'm actually glad, Carrie Sanders is here from planning, because it's a shift. It's a big shift from where we've been with trying to reduce the impervious areas on school sites. We've actually had great efforts to try to shrink as much of the paved areas on sites as possible. So this is going to be a little bit of a shift, and certainly something that as we go through new designs in the future, it's going to be a conversation point at the planning board through our mandatory referral process. But yes, future projects we will consider that.
That's excellent to hear. Since you mentioned Carrie, would you like to speak to anything that's been said so far regarding these topics?
Thank you. I'm really happy to hear the update from Seth Adams, and I appreciate both Seth and David being here, and you leading the meeting, Shabana. So yeah, I definitely feel like we're moving in the right direction by providing some solutions. So that's really encouraging. And as Seth mentioned, yeah, it's a tough balance with the school sites, because we're trying to make the school sites have less pavement. And so we're going to have to think about how to adjust that based on these plans. But I think we can get there and find some creative solutions.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's a paradigm shift. You're right. We have to change the way we're thinking. I mean, there are sustainable measures which can be found to do this successfully. We just have to get people thinking and doing. So thank you for your efforts. And Seth, thank you for your update. Aaron Kraut has had his hand up for some time. Aaron?
Yeah. Hey Seth, what project would this engineering study be in?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. It's either in our I can't remember exactly where we put it, but it's in it's either in our, I think we either put it in our stormwater discharge and water quality management project, or it was in our facility plan. Okay, I'll get you the specifics on that one though.
Yeah, I'll follow up. Thanks.
Okay, very good. Alfred, you've had your hand up also.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up, and I apologize if I misremembered who initiated that inter-team with the students, brightest and best.
Jeff posted a note about that.
Yes, I noticed. So I'm not completely off key, but I don't want to harp on it. But I recall that we were told we would get some results of that study to look at, and that hasn't happened. And what I'm afraid of is I see slippage and starting to see some, it feels, I forget the term, some finger pointing. I am afraid we're going to get to July and we're not going to have a solution. Like the budget for, was it 250,000 is going to be allocated for this year for a solution, in the sense of there's a recommended spot or some kind of multi-location spot. I see slippage happening, and I'm just discouraged by not seeing any result when we were told we'd see something from that joint team. Thank you for letting me vent.
If Shaban, if I can speak, because that's going to lead into
Yes.
the next agenda item.
Yes, David, please go ahead.
Well, someone else has got their hand up.
I think it's Carol. Carol, are you here?
Carol.
Welcome.
I'm here, and I'm having issues with my camera, so you're not going to be able to see me. I just wanted to drill down on your question, Shabana, to Seth. You're talking about including this with future schools. So this is going to be including the new school that you're doing at Crown, correct?
Unfortunately, Crown has been designed. It's actually in the bidding phase, so we're not going to stop the design of that and start over. But we did look at that in terms of what modifications would be required to park buses at that site based on the current design. It is fairly minimal impact. So if obviously we decide to change it, it's something that we may be able to incorporate. But quite honestly, we're still just struggling to, bring that project within budget. So there's a variety of things that we're looking at the moment. But that one was designed probably about 2 years ago. It started from a site standpoint. So that is not one of the ones that, we're going to start from the beginning with looking at this approach.
So what future schools are we talking about then?
Yeah, so the high schools that are still in the pipeline for us are Damascus High School, Magruder High School, Wooten High School. Those are the schools that we're not very far if at all with our planning of those high schools.
Okay, so those schools are retrofits, correct?
No, those are all part of our major capital projects. So
right. They're existing schools that you're
correct. Yes, correct.
Right.
Okay, I did have one follow-up question, and then I'm going to turn it over to our Montgomery County General Services Director, David Dice. But roughly how many buses would be parked at a school? Like, is there an average number that you guys are figuring?
So what we've looked at, I mean, and actually we've talked closely with the electric bus vendors in terms of what makes sense from charging stations and the infrastructure involved in that. And their response is, ideally it would be, that 40 to 50 range. That might be pushing it at many of our schools, but that's certainly what we would strive, for. If it ends up being 30, great. But right now, without modifications, we'd be lucky to get 10 or 12. So that's just the shifts that we're looking at.
I understand. That's actually a pretty decent number, so I hope we can do that. All right. Well, at this time, I'm pleased to welcome Mr. David Dice. David, you got the floor.
Okay, thanks. I want to start by really commending schools. There's been a tremendous seed change in schools' approach in this regard, and it's really commendable. Maximizing bus parking at schools. Of course, traditionally, communities have objected to the bus parking because of the diesel fumes and the like, and once again, the shift in technology is made the big difference. The only other thing, just for everyone else's benefit, is you have to calculate route runs and the ability of buses to make those runs on a single charge. So it's definitely a lot of logistics as well as the engineering aspect. And to address Alfred's concerns about stalemates and stalls, I think this is a significant aspect of that. The solution does involve, and not only at the Shady Grove Depot, but also at all school depots, the necessity of finding solutions for bus crowding at the depots, and the solution is parking them at the schools. Relative to the Shady Grove Depot, we've been progressing on this. As I told you at the last meeting at which I spoke, that we were moving forward. And I was pleased to report that as of today, a contract award has been posted for the design team that will be assisting us in doing conceptual designs and getting community input that will start with this group. And so we'll be working with Shabana on and all of you and coordinating over the next month or so a meeting or a series of meetings to get your input on this. I just wanted to we just posted the award today, so I don't have them here with me to introduce them, but I want to tell you who they are and what their background is. And then we'll have to work with, we still have to go through procurement processes and obligatory waiting periods in case there's protests and the like, and then scratching out a contract, which we've already started on. So they should be officially on board within the next 2 weeks with an inked contract. But the two firms, it's a partnership. The firms we've selected are firms by the name of Design Collective and PRR. They were the successful teams out of 6 proposals that we got. We're really pleased with this. Now, this is not the firm that will do the design. This is the firms that will come up with conceptual design and logistics considerations that involve fitting the depot on the site. And as I have promised to this group before and reiterated to them and to my staff, I promised Shabana and her neighbors that you would not see the depot. And so that's the task before them. The group Design Collective, which is the lead consultant here, is a 50-year-old firm founded in I don't know, it's 1978, 50 years ago. I forget anymore. I remember 1978 far too clearly, so thinking of it in terms of multiple decades is painful. But they're based out of Baltimore and have offices in Chicago too. They've done a lot of extensive work in civil and educational areas, including works in Baltimore, Columbia, and elsewhere. Their expertise is really in planning and urban design, particularly as those designs impact neighborhoods, urban revitalization, transit-oriented development, tough to say with dentures, and public engagement. So they really are a great firm. They'll be the lead in this effort, assisted by a firm going by the initials of PRR. And both of these are local firms. PRR is actually not local, based out in Seattle, but they're a minority owned business, 120 plus employees, 40 years of experience, and their expertise really is in the community engagement. They're the ones that will be initiating a lot of the strategies to create charrettes and get input from everybody. The team itself has done a lot of work in Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, New York, and my home state of Rhode Island. They are again focusing under this phase in community engagement. I was really pleased to see, and one of the strengths was this PRR element, because oftentimes design firms come in and they tell us they know how to do community engagement and solicit input, and they really don't. So this was really important because this is going to be a very detailed and complicated master planning process for this facility that's both schools, buses, as well as ride-on buses, accessing away from the community, not into the community, and incorporating residential as well as industrial transit-oriented facilities. So you can appreciate how complicated this is. Frankly, there's been a lot of interest and energy generated within the county government. We recognize that this is going to be a signature project. This is what we call an engineering news record project, something that's going to get national attention, maybe even international attention, for combining residential and transit industrial development to the point where the industrial aspect is literally hidden and overshadowed by the residential aspects of it. So we think it's going to be an important project. An interesting anecdote about the firm Design Collective, they were actually involved in the planning and design charrettes that Park and Planning initiated that led to the Shady Grove sector plan. So they actually have some institutional knowledge of the Shady Grove plan and understand what the intent was and remains of that plan. So we're excited to have these folks on board. We're going to get their feet wet over the next few weeks and then kick off a series of discussions and meetings, which will, as I mentioned already, certainly include initial and ongoing discussions with the Shady Grove Advisory Committee. So that's my update. I wasn't sure if you guys were going to have a March meeting or not. It doesn't really matter because it would be too much to just have in the context of this meeting. We'll schedule specific meetings and engagement. And frankly, I know that you guys have been comfortable with Teams and we can do hybrid meetings, but I really believe that these sorts of discussions are enhanced and improved by face-to-face. So we're going to really try and do this in a manner where we can bring people together and get the dynamic of interaction that we'll host again over not just one, but a series of discussions so that we can, I want them to hear from you. This is not filtering through DGS. They need to hear directly from you and hear your concerns and probably frustrations as well. And certainly some finger pointing and say, make sure you do this. That is entirely okay. And I, in fact, encourage that. So we'll get back to you once they're actually officially on board and start kicking the process off.
Excellent. Thank you, David. We appreciate that update. And that is really exciting. I know my community of West Side is definitely going to be interested in learning this information. We have a few follow-up questions. I think Carol had her hand up first. Carol, right. And then Jeff. Carol?
Right. I just have a question for you, David. I think you mentioned in the past that WMATA has had approached the county about the county taking over that Metro Access Road and back.
Correct.
And that was actually part of your potential plan for.
That's correct.
This was ultimately going to be designed. Are those discussions still ongoing?
Absolutely. That is part of this, and key to the strategy. We want buses to go out that way and not onto Crabs Branch. That is an ongoing discussion. You can appreciate that WMATA moves slowly, but we have already, through our Department of Transportation, initiated, and it was interesting that WMATA approached us with this. So I
think WMATA, that's probably reflects their budgetary issues.
Yeah, we'll help them out with gusto.
I hope you're doing your due diligence though to make sure that there's nothing wrong with that road.
yeah, we don't.
And that's not the real reason why they're trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, I confess to having bought some pigs and pokes before, but we think this one's a good one.
Yeah, probably just needs to be resurfaced.
Absolutely.
Big thing. But thank you, Dave.
Shabana, you're on mute.
I said it can't be any worse than the depot that's over there, huh?
Yeah, well, true.
Anyway, Jeff, it's your turn. Thank you for waiting.
Of course. So David, thank you very much. So I'm assuming this contractor will be given the Montgomery Planning's own and the council approved Shady Grove sector plan to read and study, correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Great. And so the objective is to hear from the community, right? Yep. So there's a plan and it's the county's plan. And the community, not to preempt anyone voicing their opinion, because there are going to be people who don't want any change, and I respect that. But, there's a petition that we've had going since February of 2019 which has been signed by 862 people, demanding collaboration, movement, and the completion of the Shady Grove sector plan by relocating the MCPS bus depot. You let me know when I can invite all 862 of these voters, for those who want to come and voice their opinion.
Sure.
And if I have time, I'll come myself. All right. So this is great. This is good conversation. And I assure you that people are going to be fully supportive of action. My next question is not for you, but it's really for planning. So I've read a lot about Better Block and planning's engagement with Better Block. And the reason why I bring this up, lest it be conceived as tangential, it's not. Because David, all the good work that you're doing to facilitate community feedback, get people together to solve a problem, which is substantial, and I recognize that, is kind of along the lines of what planning has done with Better Block on multiple plans over the years. I've read about this. And I would like to somewhat change the subject to ask planning, what are the parameters around engaging a nonprofit like Better Block Foundation to come into communities and solve problems? Why is it that there was no effort to do this for the Shady Grove sector plan, which is itself a substantial problem that the county has been unable to address? So, David, with every respect and appreciation of the achievement of you and your team, I would like to first make sure that planning is part of these conversations, and I'd like to hear from planning about Better Block. Can that be an added resource that planning can pursue to help solve this problem? And why fundamentally is Better Block engaged for some plans and not others? Anyone want to talk to that point? Nkosi, Carrie?
I can speak to it, Jeff. Thanks for the question.
Sure.
So the placemaking program that the county has, and I believe I might have spoken to this group about this, gosh, feels like a while ago now, but maybe only 3 or 4 months ago, a little bit about this program. It's relatively new. The first placemaking activity that we actually did was not too far from here, in Randolph Hills in the White Flint sector plan. And thanks, Jeff, for putting that in the chat, the link to that. So that was really the first sort of larger event that we did with Better Block. Since that time, we have been looking, because it's been very popular, a lot of communities have asked for placemaking. We've started to work on a strategic plan for how to approach it so that we can make sure that communities that haven't had a placemaking event can receive one, and we can have sort of a more strategic approach to it. So we're working on that now. I know that this is a desire of this group, because I remember, Jeff, you had mentioned this in a previous meeting. So I have taken a note that it's requested. I will say that the placemaking events, we don't always have Better Block involved. Sometimes we do a variety of different types of activities, and they may not involve any contractors. It may completely be an in-house event. So there's different ways that we could approach it with Shady Grove. It doesn't have to be any strict kind of method, but what I would suggest is it would have to have a lot of engagement with the community, and it would need to be community driven. So it would be a big commitment. And so if the community is interested in that, I'm definitely willing to kind of move that ahead. But I just wanted you to be aware that it's a relatively new program, and we don't sort of have enough funding to kind of just take every request we get. We have to evaluate it and see kind of how it fits in within our work program. Thus far, we have done events associated with plans. So if we have like a master plan underway, like we did in the Fairland Briggs Cheney area, yeah, we paired that with placemaking as a way to bring people out in the community and envision what could be, and then also provide an opportunity to learn about the plan itself and get more engagement around the plan. So we've typically paired it with, since the Randolph Hills first event we did, we've now typically paired the events with a ongoing planning activity, because there's a lot of good synergy there. To give you an example, we recently completed a study in Wheaton. And so we're looking at working with Downtown Wheaton's advisory committee on a placemaking event there. So yeah, this is definitely a good idea, Jeff. I think, something we can look at. But I would say that, it's going to need to be a large group of people to kind of be interested and sort of work with me on that and the other staff in the planning department. So we can maybe come back at a future meeting and talk more about it if that's okay.
Sure.
But yeah, happy to answer questions.
Thank you.
Yep.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you, Carrie. Carol, did you have a question for Carrie?
No, actually, I had a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think your community is even ready for placemaking yet?
I really don't know. I would have to, kind of temper the pulse on that one. I'm not sure. So there's a lot of new initiatives. We have the landscaping and the beautification and a lot of things happening at West Side. So I really can't answer that question at this moment. I can get back to you.
But it might be something to keep in your hip pocket and something to keep on the back burner.
Yeah.
Especially as plans for East Side start developing.
Exactly.
Great.
So I do want to say there may be some folks here that don't know what placemaking is. Can somebody speak to that? Carrie, maybe you could explain briefly what that is for everyone.
Sure, and we actually do have a website at the planning department, so I'll put that in the chat.
Okay.
But it's, it's a way to activate communities, and it can take many different forms. There's not really a one size fits all placemaking activity.
Yeah.
But typically it is something where you try to express what a place could be in the future. Or another opportunity is to sort of transform a place through tactical methods. Like, to give you an example, and when I show the website, you'll have some examples. One might be to turn a parking lot into a temporary park for a short period of time, so people could see what that place could be. Another example may be to take a blank wall in a community and create a mural on that wall to kind of activate and create more of a community feel. So those are two examples, but there's like many different ways that you could do placemaking. But I put the link in the chat so folks can check it out more.
Very good. Thank you. That's very helpful. Hopefully that gives everybody a point of reference. And thanks for the question, Carol. Any further questions for either Seth Adams, David Dice, or Carrie Sanders before we move on to the capital improvement budget? No?
Alfred has his hand up.
Alfred, please go ahead.
Thank you. I did have a question for Carrie, following up on the observation that it has to be a community-driven, you use that word or phrase, and I wanted to offer that my experience with the emails that I'm listed to receive from various different county government entities, I try to get as much information as I can, and I do get information from Mid-County region. I get information from some from planning, but I'm curious how the community can drive a process when we don't have an up-county advisory board, for example, that I'm aware of. I thought someone was going to research that with perhaps somebody in the up-county center in Germantown. But I'm aware of emails that come out that show charrettes are happening at Silver Spring or Colesville, or bike trails or bike lanes or painting sidewalks. There's a lot of information going out to the community, but I don't see that information coming out to us here in the Shady Grove sector, or Durwood for that matter. Durwood's not even listed on the mid-county flyer that comes out. Upper Rock Creek is as close as one can get to it. I'm sorry if I'm meandering, but when you say community-driven initiative to get this going, what does that mean?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question, Alfred. It means that the ideas for what the placemaking will do, for example, if there's an idea about a temporary park, it's much better if that idea actually is something that the community supports or is interested in doing. It's not helpful for the planners who, you know, we work all over the county. Many of us live in the county, but we work all over the county. We don't know your live experience every single day in your community. So it's much better for us to be working hand in hand with you to do a type of activity that actually reflects what the community wants. And so that's kind of what I was getting at. That will also encourage other people to be involved and attend, because part of it is, you know, we want to, you know, through these events, bring the community together. And so if we have community members that, okay, they know what their community members would be interested in celebrating, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's, you know, a new park, whatever it is, that just increases the interest in the activity. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. And I have a project fantasy of photographing Paramount Street and Somerville Street, which is less than a football field away from the metro stop, the metro station. There on that corner are about at least a half dozen, maybe a dozen 18-wheelers, dump trucks, and other vehicles that might be on their way to the junkyard that's also located near there. But we do have a fenced off, what is it, a fallow field, as it were, surrounded by the concrete buildings, where that could be a perfect place for a park. And we have the concrete walls of the buildings around it, which would be wonderful for the painting. So there's lots of room for initiating. I don't know if I'm the only one that's interested in it. I go down that street a lot, although I have to go very slowly because it's in atrocious condition. It's amazing that this is less than a football field away from the Shady Grove Metro. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you, Carrie. Nikosi, did you want to say something? I felt like you wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, and actually, I want to jump in again.
No, Carol, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Because I think there's some confusion about up county versus the up county versus the mid county advisory boards, and actually what advisory board this area falls under. And I think that it's actually mid county, not up county. And I've got the map up. And it looks like the dividing line is actually Shady Grove Road.
Well, it may be actually going through Redland Station, because when I plug in my address, I'm forced to go up county, but I can only get on the email of the mid county flyer. So I feel like I'm split in half.
Well, one of my neighbors here, he posted that the Mid-County Advisory Board is accepting applications and then posted a link. So
Right,
there is
they're
something for Mid-County.
They're looking for 8 members right at the moment.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're having a whole bunch expiring in July of 2024 also.
Yep.
And Alfred, I think you're mid-county. Looking at the map.
All right. Well, maybe we could research this and talk about this offline. I think it's an important issue, but I think just to stay on track, unless anybody has an objection, we could move forward to the CIP budget update. Would that be all right with everyone? Carol, is that okay with you?
That's great.
Okay, Alfred, is that cool with you too? Okay, thank you. And we'll come back to this because I feel it's a very, very important issue. And then we can get our facts and then come back. Somebody says, Marianne Shervine says the dividing line is, what'd she say? Oh, oops. Shady Grove Road, similar to comprehensive accident reporting. We are split, so it's hard to move in a cohesive manner on anything. Up county versus mid county. Aaron, do you have any feedback on that? Any thoughts on that?
You guys are in mid county.
We're in mid county. Okay. All of us, the whole. I mean,
well, I'll put the link to the map here.
Okay. Right. So really, it would behoove us for some of us to get on that mid-county advisory board.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, that's a great segue into our next item, which is the county executive's proposed CIP. And I believe, Aaron, were you going to speak about that for us this evening?
I'm going to speak a little bit about it. Aaron, you could
Okay.
augment.
Thank you.
But before we move on, David, in terms of your update, you didn't mention anything on the library. Could you update the committee on anything you have on any discussions you've had with MCPL? We can't hear you. You need to unmute.
Just got the reprimand from Teams. So I've spoken with the executive about this, and he wants to proceed with the library. So and we have informed who's the developer?
EYA and Associates.
EYA. Thank you, man. That they should plan for that in that space.
That is the best news I've heard today.
You should lead with that. That's big. That's big information. Don't hide the good news. So,
I thought I had good news on the other one.
Well, too. You did, but the library is up there in terms of people's importance. So, so the exec recently rolled out his CIP, and this list that I put together is really as it pertains to the sector plan. There are other areas sort of within Upper Rock Creek, within Rockville, but this is really just focused on the areas that pertain to the sector plan. So obviously we talked about with Seth and also with David on regarding the MCPS depot that's there, the new transit depot, which I'm assuming, David, is what you're talking about. Regarding the additional buses that will come out in the Shady Grove area because the current lease facility at Nicholson Court,
right,
is at least that is expiring and is not sufficient regarding the accommodation for future buses. So those are two CIP items that are there in terms of dollar values, etc. And then we have some others that we really haven't really talked about much in terms of our past discussions on projects, but it's important to just give you an update regarding the central BRT for 355 Frederick Road. That's still in there, still in design, additional design dollars allocated through 27, and then anticipated construction is 29. So several years out on that. Shady Grove Bike and Ped improvements. This is a CIP item that's been around for a couple of years now. It's in facility planning, and facility planning is sort of the early stage examination of a project before it's get the initial sort of standalone project, which will come typically after the facility planning work. And that's for FY 25 through 30. And then the one that's sort of wrapping up currently is the Goody Drive sort of roadway expansion, shared use path information. So I know there's obviously some high schools out there regarding downtown Crown High, The Magruder has CIP item as well. But in terms of this list, I just sort of narrowed it down to things that are really sort of applicable to the plan area and those that have been sort of around for a while, such as the Brown Street Amity Drive connection. I did not include that because that's sort of working its way as well slowly through the CIP process. So that's it for me in terms of these two slides regarding just updating folks as it pertains to the plan area. And Aaron, you could augment any other things from your perspective.
I think you covered it. And I do just want to thank Jeff, Alfred. There were a few other community members who testified at the council CIP hearings over the last 2 days in support of the additional funding for the bus depot project in the CIP. And I can tell you it's something that council staff is talking about. I think I saw Hugo here from Councilmember Jawando's office. Yeah, I think he's still here. But yeah, we're talking about it. It's good. It's good. So I just want to thank everyone who testified. And please, if you haven't already, write in. There's still time to email all council members about how important this is.
Fantastic. Aaron, I just want
happy to help with that, by the way. So
cool. Well, no, you've been instrumental. You have pushed, and I know that many West Side residents did submit written testimony to the council's website. I did so myself. I wasn't able to testify in person. So I'm hoping you have, at least 100 from West Side. That's what we were pushing for. And thank you again, and Council Member Lutke's office, Council Member Lutke, for, having you with us and, giving us so much time here. We truly appreciate it. And Nkosi, same thing for you. You are much appreciated. And that news about the library, I still can't believe it. I am like really wowed right now. So thank you very much.
It's not gonna happen tomorrow. Just remember, it's a couple years away.
Well, we waited for the buses how long? So we are used to waiting.
Amen to that.
We're used to waiting. But thank you all very much. So moving along, are there any other topics that anybody would like to talk about or discuss? Anybody that's here from attending the meeting? Mary Ann Shervine and Carol. Okay, so Mary Ann, would you like to ask a question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Okay. I've lived here in Durwood since 1990. I very rarely go across the American Legion Bridge, but I know that's not a Durwood thing, but I just want to show or just set an example of how difficult it is to get anything done. I drove across the American Legion Bridge in May of last year. The grates in the middle of the road next to the concrete divider between the going to Virginia and going back to Maryland roads were broken, and there was a lot of debris sticking up out of them. There were at least 9, as far as I could still drive safely over the bridge and see, going to Virginia, and more than that coming on the way back. I reported it, nothing happened. I drove across it again in August, and the bridge was even in worse shape, more trash in the middle of the road. It's not even a full width, so if you had a flat tire from the debris, you have no safe place to pull over. Obviously, the American Legion Bridge is a major bottleneck if something happens to it. So I ended up meeting, it's not Dawn, there is another woman that is more north on the county council. Can you remind me of her name?
Marilyn Balcom.
Marilyn, yes. So I went to one of the let's add bike lanes to the American Legion Bridge meetings that was held in Gaithersburg. And I brought pictures, and I talked to someone in DOT and Maryland, and what stuns me, I'm an electrical engineer, so I'm used to, you see a problem and you fix it. And I am apprehensive driving around here with the way everybody's driving and the condition of the roads. You mentioned potholes on that little connector road from 355 to Redland Road. It's like driving, I don't even know what, on gravel. So I emailed, I called, I talked to people. It finally got fixed in January. I have not driven over the bridge to see from my own eyes. What I'd like to understand is, in Maryland, why isn't somebody already looking at things that need to be fixed? Like, you can't tell me that with all the MDOT employees, not a single person ever drove across that bridge and saw, wow, boy, there's missing grates. And these grates are 2 by 4 feet at least. So if a tire hit them, the tire would pop. If a tractor trailer hit them, it could cause a dip enough to flip over the tractor trailer. I feel like everywhere I look, we see decay, we're unsafe roads, trash everywhere, potholes everywhere, racing, crime, and everything else. I'd like to know why I feel like I can't count on the government to notice some of these things and fix them. Why did I have to bring up the American Legion Bridge? Why isn't there an inspection? Why didn't someone notice that? And I'm going to stop talking now, and I have the emails back and forth and everything. But I'm just very discouraged. Nowhere else I've lived before have the citizens had to do the job of the government like I see here. So I just would like to have someone's opinion on why it's so difficult to get things done, and why DOT, I know it's not a county agency, but why DOT isn't on the lookout for the safety of its citizens.
Yeah, Marion, I'm going to give you my email. Happy to reach out to the state and figure out what they do in terms of looking at 495 conditions, and just try to figure out the details and what's what.
Right. I mean, I got it fixed after many phone calls. But why? Why did my voice suddenly get this big problem that thousands of people see a day fixed? So I have your email. I'll email you the letters, the back and forth letters.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and I'll take a look.
Thank you, Marianne. Your comments and your opinions are very valuable, and I'm sure Aaron can definitely shed some light and get you some information which would be useful in getting an answer to your question.
Yeah, well, when they break, in another 5 years and I'm not around,
yeah,
you know that someone else is, that they're part of regularly scheduled maintenance.
Yep, I'm sure they are, but I don't have an answer. Aaron's your man. At least he can try to be the person to get you the answer. I do want to ask a question to Nkosi. Coming from the West Side community, there is a minor change application which the developer has put in, and I know we have some West Side owners here. If you could just shed a few moments light on that application. For us, that would be useful. We are going to have EYA come to our next HOA meeting, but from your perspective, it would be great to hear what you have to say about it. So,
yeah, I'm actually going to show you what the application is. So this is from what's been submitted. So everyone can see the screen. It's an amendment. So everything you see in red on the screen is essentially new things that are coming in with the application. So they're making changes. There are like 5 major elements of the amendment in terms of updating the architecture, the look of the building. The building is shifting. So you can see the black lines underneath is what was approved initially when the site plan came in. And then the red lines on top are where they're proposing changes. So, and you can see what the elements are in terms of updating the unit mix of the building. They're adding more affordable units to the building. They're updating the landscaping, stormwater management. They're shifting the library location, and adjusting the sort of property line. So those are the elements of the amendment. And then on the data table, which is this big table here, is showing you everything regarding where different units are changing, parking calculations, transferable development rights are changing, etc. So those are the details that my colleagues and I think Troy Lethbridge is a lead reviewer on this submission. We'll be looking at regarding consistencies, etc. So it came in, I think, last week, and it's in the initial first phase of review. And yeah, so that's it in terms of this building B, which is the last multifamily building this part of Shady Grove Station West Side.
May I just ask a follow-up question on the adjusting the property lines of the HOA parcels A and B in Block V? Could you speak to that? What specifically does that do?
It's just in terms of what was previously approved, there have been adjustments because the building, they've shifted the building a little bit, as you can see, the red versus the black. So
yeah.
So therefore, all the different parcels that were previously laid out, you have to account for that in terms of this new building adjustments and layout. So that's what it's talking about.
Okay, so it's actually, the footprint is actually smaller, not bigger.
It's gotten a little tighter. Like. I would say a little tighter. Yeah,
okay.
It's tightening up a little bit.
Okay.
And yes, so that's essentially what it is. But most of the action is really happening on the inside of the building, with obviously some updating regarding the landscaping, etc., on the outside of the building as well.
Yeah, especially when you start talking about parking, it becomes very a hot topic for us here, because parking is at a premium here. So we can't afford to lose any parking. We could afford to gain some, which would be fine, but that's where the adjusting of the property lines becomes critical for us. If it's going in, that's probably better than it going out. And then my last question is the parcel of land that is undeveloped at the west side, still, the one that's Shady Grove and Crabs Branch. Any news on that?
Nothing.
Okay. All right. So can that become a temporary park? We were talking about, what we were talking about with Gary. Could that become a temporary park for our residents and owners here?
Is this the site, you're talking about the site right at Crabs Branch and Shady Grove Road?
Yes.
Yeah, we are actually in conversations with EYA on that development site. I should have had some of the details for you, but I'll get the details and email them to you on where we're at with that.
Okay. So you mean as far as something is planned possibly to go there? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we're not getting a park and we're not getting a parking lot.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. That's helpful, because I think, we should know what is happening. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other questions from the community or from the guests at the meeting this evening?
I think there was a question I saw in an earlier email from Jeff on wanting to get updated as what our plans are at the MTOC site, the current bus depot at Shady Grove and Crabs Branch. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right, David. Carol Kosteri and I were talking about that, and if you'd be kind enough, it's a great project got going.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This is again an exciting project for residents in Montgomery County who are advancing our sustainability initiatives. The microgrid that we completed at the Silver Spring Depot and has gotten really international attention. The company that partnered with us to do that is now working to do the same thing at the Equipment Maintenance and Transportation Depot, affectionately known as MTOC. That is, we in fact got an update this morning on that. We're essentially going to be carpeting that site with solar arrays, both over the existing parking structure as well as the rest of the site. There's a lot of stormwater management structures that are buried on that site. And so one of the challenges has been coming up with footing systems for these elevated panels that won't disturb the underground stormwater management structures. In conjunction with the solar array, we're going to be working with another partner to install hydrogen fueling at the site. So the buses that operate out of that northern depot run longer routes and that don't accommodate electric buses that have limited mileage duration on a charge. So we'll be operating both hydrogen fueled vehicles whose only emissions are water vapor, and as well as electric buses. The interesting, going back to the earlier discussion we had on the new depot, that is going to be designed for electric and hydrogen as well, primarily electric. So, and we'll focus hydrogen fueling at the existing depot and focus on electric charging at the new depot. But that's a project it's in engineering right now, and we expect to begin construction of those solar arrays and charging facility, which will render that depot substantially, although not entirely, substantially grid independent, so that if there's power outages, we can still charge buses and provide the transportation needs of the residents of Montgomery County. So that project should get underway this late summer or early fall, and I'll update you on the progress as it occurs.
Excellent, thank you. Jeff, did you have any follow-up questions for David?
No, it's outstanding, and I did put David in the chat the link to the Canary Media piece about
sure.
That, which is really impressive. Yeah,
Great.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Sure.
I think Carol had her hand up, Shobana.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. Hi, Carol.
The plan is actually to produce hydrogen.
That is correct.
It's a really cool project.
Yeah, our focus is on green hydrogen.
Right. Yeah.
We don't want hydrogen generated elsewhere that then gets pumped into the gray pipelines of the natural gas system. The funding and the grants and the strategy is green hydrogen. So we'll be generating it on site there. We're also looking at a couple of other locations where we can install solar arrays and to generate hydrogen elsewhere and then have it delivered to this site.
Seth has left the building. Has left the meeting, actually. Or also, Seth Adams has left the meeting. I notice, or I would be asking him what MCPS is thinking about in terms of putting solar arrays on their schools.
Actually, Seth and I have talked about that. I don't want to speak for him, but I can just say that in my discussions with Seth, the schools is doing that. We've encouraged them, as a county executive, has encouraged them to be far more aggressive, but they are installing solar arrays at their facilities. And I think that'll end up probably being part of our solution in assisting them with parking electric buses and charging them at schools will be certainly solar arrays to assist in that charging infrastructure.
Yeah, I've been into solar so long that I actually aged out of my first system and just finished installing the second on our home.
Well, good for you. That's great.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for that update.
Sure.
Nikosi, were you going to say something?
Yes, I'm going to say, two things. That solar array project will be submitted to us for a mandatory referral. So we'll work with the folks at DGS to give the committee, I'm not sure when that will be submitted, but
pretty soon, actually.
If it's for the April meeting, maybe we could have a presentation at that time, or maybe schedule something independently of that. So, and then Jeff in the chat asked about the Aldi property there at King Farm Boulevard Extended and 325. Yeah, we haven't gotten any information on that, Jeff. I'll do a little bit more digging on that regarding City of Rockville and see if they could share anything on that because it's within their jurisdiction. So that's all I could tell you on that one.
So thanks, Nikosi. So back last fall, you kindly did that, and I believe it was Sean Ryan from the city of Rockville who said that a gentleman named Dustin Shade, Schade, was the person to contact. And I thanked Sean back in October, and I wrote to Mr. Shade in last 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything, so I'll follow up with him. It's more direct that way. I just want to go back, take a step back. One of the challenges, another of the challenges that our sector faces is what you just implied, is that we have encroachment, annexation by the city of Rockville, and we have encroachment annexation by the city of Gaithersburg. And I, at one point, offered, with thanks to you, to get someone from the city of Gaithersburg on this committee, because occasionally, and sometimes even too often, we need to go to Rockville to get answers to issues that are impacting our community. And that makes getting things done, to quote Marianne, even more difficult. Forget about getting things done, just getting information. So I appreciate what you're sharing. I'll CC you on my email to Mr. Shade, and maybe we can find out, what the status of that is. But
yeah,
so thanks.
Sure. We will have probably in April allow City of Rockville staff to come and share their plans for their next annexation, which will be the whole metro station. So they're planning to annex essentially both sides of the tracks, including the rail yards, the warm water rail yards. So that will put a request out to them, so you'll have more information on that. They have not yet submitted anything formally to us, but we know it's coming sometime this year. So it's better for them to share their thoughts and their plans regarding the annexation of the metro station.
That's fantastic. So everybody's awareness, as they annex, adjacent property becomes annexable. So after the metro, what becomes annexable potentially is West Side, and the bonus, what then becomes annexable, is the East Side and the bus depot. And Rockville can have it because they've been incredibly uncooperative, as I think many of us who've stayed informed on this issue, they've been incredibly uncooperative in trying to help solve that problem. So if they want to annex the East Side, hey, they should go ahead and do that, and that can be their problem to solve. That's my own opinion. Just trying to inject some humor into the conversation.
And riffing on that, and totally off topic, how are the plans going with the Restoration Center?
Oh my, do we want to get into that now?
No, probably not.
Thank you.
No, we only have 10 minutes left in this meeting, so maybe
I will just say this: the community committee and stakeholders group that was formed to work on that is meeting while we're meeting here, and my staff is diligently on that. And there's actually a very good solution in the works.
Okay, good to hear.
Awesome. Okay, are there any other topics related to what we've been discussing that anybody would like to bring up, mention, ask questions about before we move on? No, it's a quiet night tonight. So our last item on our agenda, if there are no other topics, no other comments or questions, is our next meeting is at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. And maybe we can just collectively figure out one or two things that we would like to discuss on that agenda for the meeting. Anybody have any ideas or thoughts of Jeff, Carol?
I'm wondering, and David, you might have some thoughts on this about how up and functioning your contractors are going to be by April the 10th.
Oh, they certainly should be. I'd be if they're not, I will have words with my staff. As I mentioned in my my report, we'll be working with Shabana and scheduling some meetings to do that. Hopefully in mid to late March. So it might be interesting to in your next meeting in April to just get some feedback from you all on how you feel that process is going.
If
Yeah.
the process is up and going, to get feedback.
Sure.
all the
Yeah.
time. Yep.
So one of the things, I believe March 25th, Council Member Lutke may be doing a Government 101. It's not confirmed yet, but Aaron, I think that's the date. Would that be a date potentially where you could have some time? And then we could combine the two things in, one meeting for West Side? Or do you prefer something, separate?
What two things are we talking about?
Yeah, I would guess what this group needs is something separate.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we're
But
talking
the-
about
they-
discussions regarding the depot plans, and I really think that should be separate. That could be lengthy, and
Okay.
I'd rather not put pressure on either issue.
Okay,
But
that's
look,
fine.
we could talk about the March 25th date. And we could find another one if that's a date that works for a lot of folks. Up to you guys.
So the March 25th date was going to be the date for the West Side Community Forum.
Yeah,
So, but
that can be really any time. So, it's
okay.
however the team approaches it, and whenever they want to set up a meeting, we're flexible. So.
Okay, so I think maybe we give preference to David's contractor
I think
and this project.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that would be good.
Okay, so we tentatively book March 25th, and then pending confirmations on that, that would be great.
Shobhan, I do think, even if only a brief report from Rockville on their annexation plans, I think would be of particular interest to respectfully your community, given proximity.
Yeah, on March 25th or April?
April 10th.
April 10th, yeah, Rockville. Okay,
not
so
that
I
meeting,
agree
maybe.
with that. Yep. Rockville, okay. Anything else, Carol?
Thinking ahead till June, I think we were talking about trying to get our state delegates on the agenda.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, we still have time, but we will definitely like to hear from Rockville regarding the annexation activities, which Nkosi mentioned. And then I'm sure something else will come up by then, but that would be, and if there's any new news from either the Montgomery County Public Schools or from David at that point, we could also include some time for you, but hoping March 25th will be the time where we'll get all the updates that are needed. Now, on the March 25th date, would that be a date where we would ask community engagement also from West Side? Would you want that at that time, or would you want that in a subsequent meeting, David?
I think what we need to do is get the consultant on board and start mapping out a schedule and their approach. So I'm gonna not obfuscate but defer until we've got that. So let us get them up and running, and then we'll specifically reach out. Ronnie Warner, whom you guys have heard from in the past, will be leading this initiative for me, and you'll be hearing from her to set up meetings. So let's map that process out over the next month, and hopefully, I was told by her earlier today that they anticipated reaching out to you guys in mid-March.
Wonderful.
So those dates could work, but let's work that out.
Sounds good. We're flexible, and we're appreciative of these efforts, and we're excited actually. So thank you.
Yeah, as are we.
Yeah, it's cool. Any other comments before we close the meeting today? Jeff, did you want to say anything or bring up anything?
Nope.
All good?
Yep.
Okay, Carol? Fantastic. Well, I'd like to take a moment to thank Aaron Kraut, David Dice, Seth Adams, Carrie Sanders. I think there was somebody, let's see, Hugo. Hugo, you and I have not met. what is Hugo's last name? Hugo
Hey.
Cantu.
Hey,
Hi.
sorry everyone. I was in and out of the camera because my computer sounds like a jet engine when Teams is running. I just want to say thank you, everybody. Aaron has caught me up. I've been working for Councilmember Joanna for a couple months now on the Planning and Housing Committee. But I know that this has been a long time coming. It's a long process. So Aaron's been able to catch me up on this. So I just appreciate all the time and patience. And we're here to support.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We're a very vocal, active group, and we're on a mission. So, you know, we're very mission driven. And so that's funny, huh, David?
That's
true. Yeah, it is true.
It's great.
Hey, you gotta
I love
have.
it.
Thank you. Well, you were instrumental. So, you know, we are very, very appreciative of you. So thank you so much. Yep. And thank you to everyone that attended this meeting this evening. Jeff Resnick, our fearless leader, is here in the background, but he's not really in the background. He's still here with all of us. Carol Kozary, my co-chair. Carol, it's great to see you, and we'll see you again next month, in April. Did you want to have any closing words?
No, I said, hopefully I will fix my camera issue by then. So you can really see me.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, if there are no additional comments, again, a heartfelt thank you to everyone who attended the meeting today, who reported and put in effort, and we'll see you on April 10th.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.